So, Dale, the other night I threw out this question to the kids while doing some youth hockey coaching, and I asked them if you could be any animal in this sport, if you can imagine yourself being some sort of ferocious beast, what would that be?
Okay.
And I actually heard some pretty interesting results here.
I'm intrigued by what these responses might be.
So the first one that was kind of intriguing is I did hear catfish.
Okay. Nashville flavor. I like it. And then maybe you asked this closer to the playoffs. I like it. That's good.
I also heard dragon.
My kids would choose dragon, of course.
Rhino.
Yep.
Fits a defenseman. That's a good choice.
Yep.
For some of those offensive players, I heard cheetah.
Of course.
That was actually a popular one. A bull.
Okay.
A shark.
Very intimidating creatures.
Yes. Yeah. Very intimidating. And this one was probably the most intimidating. A hummingbird.
Wow. Well, I will say they're very, protective of their own, and maybe he just wanted to float around. I don't know.
Hi, I'm Scott Schwertly.
And I'm Dale Dameron.
And we are mental performance coaches at GritBase. And at GritBase, we create customized mental performance strategies to help hockey players just like you become more confident, calm, and mentally tough so they can succeed on and off the ice. And we're also the host of this podcast, The Hockey Combat Mindset, which is all about helping you win the war in your mind and become a stronger and more capable hockey player. Welcome. We're glad you're here.
Welcome indeed to episode number 4. And in today's episode, the topic is the killer instinct, adopting a predator mindset into hockey. And I'm excited about this one because Nashville Predators, right? We've mentioned it before. We're based out of Nashville, Tennessee. And what better way than to bring that Predators mindset in than the Nashville Predators, right?
Yeah, I know that one makes you happy.
But don't worry, everyone. We're not going to talk about the Nashville Predators for the next half hour. We're going to talk about a lot of great ways to bring that Predator mindset into your game and hopefully to your teammates' games as well. And we'll see you on the other side.
So the year was 2009, and Sidney Crosby, man, he was playing like such an animal in the Stanley Cup Finals. Dale, you probably remember this, but obviously the Penguins at the time were going up against the Detroit Red Wings, and Crosby was just incredible. I mean, he was providing so much offensive pressure. He was creating scoring opportunities. I mean, he had to be having some sort of predator mindset when he was out there pretty much every game during that final series.
I would say so. And one thing to look into on this too is maybe what was driving him on that. You mentioned it was 2009. In 2008, the Stanley Cup Final featured the Detroit Red Wings and the Pittsburgh Penguins, the exact same two teams. Mm-hmm. They played in the final. I can't remember if it went to Game 6 or Game 7 in that series, but the Red Wings came out on top. So Crosby was this close, right, and did not get the Stanley Cup. And at this point in his career, he had not won one yet. Mm-hmm. So he was still very young, but the drive was there. And that would make me want to drive even harder to not miss out and be in that same spot again.
Yeah, it definitely fits this predator mentality that we're talking about, where he was really on the hunt, not only from a big picture perspective, but if you think about every shift, every opportunity, he was on the hunt to create opportunities for his team.
For sure. He's wearing the C. He's the captain of the team. He's supposed to be the next phenom. I think in 2009, this was probably only his, I believe, 4th season at the time. He's got a lot to prove. He's got a lot on his back, and he probably felt like, not that it was his fault, and I'm not saying he didn't play like this in 2008, but he did not want to be the captain that lost the cup 2 years in a row. Mm-hmm. So I would think that really drove his relentless pursuit, would you say, of the cup, but then that translated into pursuing the puck on the ice and that goal ultimately, relentlessly as well.
Yeah, so I think it's safe to say that Crosby's performance, it exemplified the power of a predator mindset. So if we fast forward here, what was the end result? Well, obviously the Penguins won the Stanley Cup that year, and Sidney Crosby, well, he actually got the Conn Smythe Trophy as the most valuable player in the playoffs. So all of this is testament to what a predator mindset can do for an individual as well as a team.
For sure. And so what is a predator mindset, right? Well, most of us in school took biology or science, at least general science, learned that, the difference between a predator and a prey. So it's really up to you. You can choose one role, right? You're always going to either be hunting or you're going to be hunted. And it goes outside of hockey, in my opinion. You kind of always want to be the one on the hunt. You don't want to be the one that's being chased down. Actually, we have horror movies that are based on that, right? You don't want to be the one that's getting hunted. So it's either one or the other. The predator, whether you're an individual player, or you could even see this as an entire team, you want to adopt an offensive stance and actively seek to assert dominance, right? And that carries over to the ice big time, whether this is play on the puck or in your own zone, right? Even if you're not on the puck, maybe you're battling in front of the net. Even as a forward, you could be trying to battle for that position, or a defenseman, you're trying to get that forward out of that space to clear the space for your goalie. You want to make sure that you are that predator mindset. You're on the hunt. You want the kill. Your assertive force is going to be relentless as you pursue that success.
Yeah, I mean, there is a sense of hunger, as you just talked about, where they're on the hunt, they're on the kill. There's a desire that is there that does not exist with something that's the opposite, which is the prey that you were talking about. So what exactly is the prey? Well, it's the opposite of the predator. Another way to put this is if you think about a predator, because they're on the hunt, they want the kill, they're in this proactive mindset. Again, going back to Sidney Crosby, he wanted to create opportunities. He was on the hunt. He wanted to score. He wanted to help his team score. A prey is the opposite. They're reactive. They're running away. They play with timidness. They play with fear. They play with worry. They play with hesitation. It's the exact opposite of what you want to be when you're on the ice.
And I would say that no one goes into a game thinking, I'm going to be a prey today. It honestly happens fluid through the game. It could be maybe your team goes down by 3 goals very early, right? Maybe your captain or alternate captain gets, just destroyed on the ice and gets, has to leave for the locker room to get checked out. You don't know if he's coming back or not, right? There's these things that can play on your mind to make you be more reactive than proactive. And I mean, I've seen it myself in sports, right? We've had games even just in beer league, right? That it's where, you go out, you're like, I'm going to be a predator today. I'm going to be, that mindset of like, we're going to go on the kill. We're going to win this game by 4 goals or more. And then before you know it, you've led into, early, and you're like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? Like, this is no longer, I can't be proactive. I have to be reactive. And the true answer is you don't have to be. It's all a mindset thing.
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure. And it can change in an instant. And again, going back to this proactive nature, you have to stay on top of it. You have to be deliberate. You have to be intentional every single shift to avoid falling into that trap of not drifting into a prey mentality, because it can happen. You can have the best intentions in the world, but as soon as something goes wrong, you can fall into that trap, and you don't want to be there. And that's the whole purpose of this episode, is to teach you and show you how to always stay within that predator mindset.
So like we talked about in the Stinger, you get to sometimes choose your predator, right? You could maybe embody yourself as an actual animal, maybe not a hummingbird, but there's a lot of animals out there, right, that are intimidating or, on the hunt that you could think of, that, I don't know, it's up to you to put that mindset into your own head. So I guess you have a question here, Scott, that you would ask, your clients, right, that you're dealing with, and it's pretty simple, right?
Yeah, I mean, and this is something I got from my mentor, Dr. Saul Miller. He actually introduced this idea to me, not only in person through our sessions, but also through his own curriculum. He wrote a book called Hockey Tough. Highly recommend it, by the way, so definitely check it out. So this idea actually comes from him, but here's the question. If you could embody any animal in the sport, what would it be? And so again, going back to how we opened, it's always fun to hear how kids respond to it. But typically what we have learned with working with hockey players and so forth, and even from Saul's experience, is that most elite hockey players typically like to choose a big cat. So when you think big cat, that's like a jaguar, a lion, a
Saber-toothed tiger.
Yeah. Squeezing in the predators.
It's all over this episode, really, right? We're talking about predators. We're talking about big cats. Continue. It's fine.
But yeah, big cats tend to be the animal of choice. So again, jaguars, lions, tigers, pumas, cheetahs. If you think about a big cat, it likes to pounce in on an opportunity. They're obviously very agile and fast. They kind of embody the ideal characteristics that any hockey player is going to want when they're out there doing their thing.
For sure. But things you don't hear a lot, notably, you don't hear anyone be like, I want to be a rabbit on the ice.
I don't want to be a bunny.
Yeah, you don't want to be a bunny. I don't want to be a gazelle, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to be just fodder for the tigers that are out on the ice, right? And there's a reason behind this, right? Because prey animals, don't get me wrong. Everybody loves a bunny rabbit. But when you think about it, an eagle is going to snatch that bunny rabbit right up if you're out there in a fight, right? And nobody wants to go out into a fight, into a battle, picturing themselves to be something cute, fuzzy, and something that could be easily picked off by a predator.
Yeah.
So when you do that, you're already just kind of giving yourself a defensive posture. You're exuding a sense of protective worry. You're vulnerable. It's all the mindset thing, right? So that's, I'm joking about it, but in reality, there's a reason why people don't choose cute animals when they go out there to battle, on the ice.
Yeah. Really, at the end of the day, a lot of people also talk about, if you're not talking about a predator mindset, you're talking about like a warrior mindset when you're talking about hockey. And so you're going into battle, you're going into war. The name of this podcast is the hockey combat mindset. Like, yeah, you're not going to win a war if you're a bunny or a gazelle. So you've got to change the mindset there.
So I think what we're going to do now is something fun. We're going to go through some animals and maybe talk about what we think that animal kind of exudes, and maybe think about some real life examples of hockey players, old or current, that we think, and this is just our best guess, right? So don't hold us to this. And if you are one of the players we mention and you don't agree with what we say, feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you and find out what animal you do relate to while you're on the ice. But this is one of those things where I think this would be fun exercise to kind of go through a mental picture of what, if you relate to this animal, who you might relate to on the ice as well. So I guess the best one to lead off with is we talked about the big cats, and what bigger cat out there than a lion, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, the king of the jungle, even though they're known more for being on the prairie or the safari, I should say. But anyway, the lion is probably one of the most intimidating cats out there. We all think about the male lion with its mane, right? But at the same time, they are pack hunters. The females do a lot of the hunting. But lions, we kind of picture them as having a big heart, big leader, lead by example, strong, courageous. I have a player in mind that I think of.
Yeah. Who are you thinking of when you think of a lion?
Think of Mark Messier.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The Messier.
Messier. Yeah. We mentioned him last episode in his 1994 Stanley Cup run. But yeah, this player was a leader on the ice through his actions, a leader in the locker room. He was alternate captain for the Oilers up until Gretzky was traded, and then he became captain after 1988. He was captain there until he left the Oilers in 91. And then he went to the New York Rangers. He was the team captain right away, held that until 1997. We all know that he won the cup in there. Again, Rangers fans love to mention that as much as possible. And then he left, and then when he came back to the Rangers again from 2000 to 2004, he was actually the captain again for the remainder until he retired. So a great leader, definitely a heart of a lion, a great player out there on the ice for sure.
Yeah, you already mentioned these two things, but just the idea of, leading with courage or unparalleled leadership. Yeah, he truly, looking through those highlights that you just mentioned, someone like a Mark Messier definitely embodies sort of that lion mentality. So, if you're out there right now and you're trying to think, okay, if I was to embrace this predator mindset and I wanted to be a big cat like a lion, maybe you're the captain of your team. Yeah, if you're finding an inspiration or encouragement for someone like a Mark Messier, then maybe a lion is the sort of persona that you need to take on the next time you get on the ice.
I'm going to throw out another one for us for lion, since I'll keep it here with the Nashville Predators currently. I think Ryan O'Reilly.
Oh yeah,
I think he embodies the lion too. You think about him with the St. Louis Blues. He was only an alternate captain at the time. Only, you know, I say it like it's not a big deal, but you know, he was obviously a leader in that locker room and a leader on the ice, and he's shown it in just one season with the Predators too. What kind of leader he can be for younger players, and you know, a player like that leads by example, you're going to follow him.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think he'd be another good example.
There's also the captain, which is Steve Yzerman, could possibly fit under the line as well. I mean, I know he's known for kind of the same traits as Mark Messier: courage, leadership, all that stuff. So definitely fits within that realm.
And he's leading as a general manager now too.
Yeah,
and the Yzer plan, as a lot of people talk about, people are still following him to this day.
It didn't work out this year, though, unfortunately.
That's a slow build. All right, so keeping with the cat mentality, we can move on to our next animal, which would be the tiger. My kids love tigers. I don't know why, but that stands out a lot in our household. You know, unlike a lion, they're not so much pack hunters. They're going to be more on their own, but they are still relentless, right? They're very territorial. They love to, you know, really hold down their area and hunt what is in their area, right? And they're not going to let anyone barge in on that either. They're going to be relentless, have a lot of ferocity, a lot of intensity, and they're going to make sure that they own their space. And I think someone who does this, at least in pursuit of scoring as a dominant force, was one of the greats, Maurice Rocket Richard.
Oh, yeah.
He was Rocket was his nickname for a reason, right? His intensity led him to be the first player to score 50 goals in a season. It's still a milestone. I know you and I were just talking before we recorded, actually, of Austin Matthews almost scoring 70 this year.
Yeah.
But 50 goals is still that marker of like you are an elite scorer in the NHL. He was the first player to do this in a season. And not only was he the first to do it, but he was also the first to complete the extremely difficult 50 and 50, which is 50 goals in 50 games.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, that is insane. Not just the pace of obviously having a goal per game at least, but having to do that in the first 50 games, no slumps, nothing like that, right? It's extremely difficult. On top of this, only 4 other players have even done this. Mike Bossy, Wayne Gretzky, which we know of a lot, Mario Lemieux, and Brett Hull. They have all completed this, but it is a extremely difficult thing to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an achievement, and definitely embodies, as we're talking about here, sort of this persona or mindset of a tiger, for sure.
Yeah, he owned his ice, he owned his team, he owned the scoring, right? And that's basically the easiest way to put that. He also won the Stanley Cup 8 times. So, you know, it also helped him as a team as well. But yeah, it was just great to see what he could do on the ice in scoring.
Yeah, and by the way, side note, I read the other day that, I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm pretty sure the source was a good one. But you mentioned Brett Hull, and we were just talking about Steve Yzerman, about, you know, the lion mentality. I read the other day that I think Ken Holland, several years ago when the Red Wings were actually, you know, competitive that year, it might have been, was it around, I'm trying to think of Yzerman's last year when they won the Cup, or near the end there. But anyway, whenever they brought on Steve Yzerman, Nicholas Lidstrom, and a few others actually took pay cuts to make room in the budget to bring on Brett Hull. And they basically postponed payment into the next year. And to me, that again embodies this courageous leadership, you know, leading by example. Just, again, Lidstrom eventually became the captain of the Red Wings. I mean, they all fit the bill when it comes to that lion mindset.
There's also a lot of examples of that where hockey players in general take maybe not the money that they deserve, right? In order to leave space in the team so they can get better players to play around them, right? Just hockey being, you know, with a hard salary cap and very much a team sport, right? You don't win it solo. You win it with 4 rolling lines and 3 pairs of defensemen and 2 all-star goalies, right? You can't take all the money. So it's great to see that, I don't know, play out in the players too. Although at the same time, I want them to get paid. So, it's like you want them to earn what they earn. But, it is great to see that team mindset that plays out in every aspect.
Yeah, for sure. Well, now that we've spent a few minutes talking about the Lion and the Tiger, totally switching gears and sort of the opposite of that would be something like maybe a Bison.
This is an interesting one.
Yeah.
Just because you don't think of like Bison, you don't think of Predator.
Yeah, but it is a very popular answer. In fact, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but we actually have our own assessment that we've created. And I know, Dale, you've actually scored as the Bison. Now, keep in mind, I don't want to cause any confusion here. We're talking in generalities right now, where if you want to be a Predator, what Predator mentality do you want? If you want to get more granular, we actually have created an assessment that kind of plays up on it, but it's a little bit different. But not going to get into the weeds just yet with that. But if you are one of these players that likes to play, aggressively and own your role and be an intimidator, and a Bison sort of mentality tends to fit that. Obviously, the first few people I think of are defensemen when it comes to a Bison sort of mentality.
And I think the main reason of that is obviously a Bison's very strong. Bison also are very, they're pack animals. So like a lot of the pack animals of those big herd animals like that, they're going to protect their young. They're going to, maybe the rookies on the team, right? No. But they're going to protect those that are on the team, or their team rather. They circle around them. They make sure that they, that no one can get to them. And that can be carried over to a team aspect on the ice, because you're going to be that player that stands up for other players, right? You're going to be that player that either is throwing out the points on the assists, right? You're feeding the scores for putting the puck in the back of the net, or you're the player that is going to make sure that no one's going to touch your goalie, because you're going to always be towering over them to protect your goalie, right? To stand up for him at every point possible. I think when we have a Bison, we think of like a huge animal. We think of massive, hard to tip over, hard to push over. You got a player in mind on this one?
Oh, definitely Zdeno Chara on this one. Yeah. Or Zdeno Chara, sorry.
6'9".
Yeah.
Ridiculous. He even had to use a special stick that was...
Oh, yeah. His stick is incredibly long.
Right.
Yeah.
It was just based on the, just on his height. It had to be past the restrictions.
Yeah.
He was obviously an imposing presence. He played super aggressive on defense. 6'9", he obviously intimidated opponents, making him a cornerstone for the Boston Bruins defense for years. Hockey's not necessarily the easiest sport to play, and you think a 6'9", oh my goodness, he can skate down the ice with 3 strides. He's already at the other side of the rink. But it wasn't necessarily easy for him, right? He had to adapt to the game. I remember reading stories or hearing interviews with him where he talked about a younger age, and even when he got to the pro level, how he had to still change his game up a lot. Like it doesn't come super easy for someone who's 6'9". Me being 5'8", I can definitely be like, oh, see, it's not easy to be tall, right? No, but like at the same time, it's just you have to adapt based on what you your size and what you bring. But Chara definitely did that. He played over almost 1,700 regular season games.
Yeah, it's crazy.
200 playoff games. 680 points in his career, over 2,000 penalty minutes, which kind of leads to that protective mindset of him protecting his teammates. League's best defenseman, Norris Trophy in 2009. And, of course, he was the captain of the Bruins for a very long time, and including their 2011 Stanley Cup championship.
Yeah, and now is even running marathons. I mean, he's just an incredible athlete to not only have that track record from just his hockey statistics there, but then to now shift gears and switch to running, which is a whole separate challenge.
Yeah, for sure. An active player that I would think of as a Bison, I don't know if you'll agree with me on this or not, but I think of Aaron Ekblad for the Florida Panthers.
Oh yeah.
Very imposing force, big guy. Maybe Jacob Trouba.
Oh yeah,
as another one too.
Agree with both of those. Yeah,
just big guys that protect their team. They're going to stand up for them. Maybe they're not the most well liked on another team, but they're definitely well liked in their locker room.
Yeah, definitely good fits.
All right, so we've done some big cats. We did just a big animal in general and a Bison. Let's get a little bit more elegant here. Let's move over to the high-flying eagle. We got a player that really comes to mind when it's known for high-flying, swooping in when the opportunity arises, snatching it, taking what is his, when he maximizing, capitalizing, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
Alexander Ovechkin.
Oh yeah, he's a perfect fit for this one for sure.
Yeah, powerful shot. Maybe not the fastest guy on the ice, but when he was younger, especially, he could move. We know that he scores majority of his goals from one spot on the ice.
Yep.
But honestly, you can't even knock him for it because he's he's getting close to catching Gretzky's record. And honestly, he makes it work for him. He definitely capitalizes on his chances, and there's a lot to be said on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's an eagle with a dad bod.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Of course, you say that his son, being a dad, his son, I think is going to definitely be. Wow, have you seen that kid's slap shots?
Yes, I've seen a few of those.
They're better
reels.
than mine.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
But I guess when your father is Alexander Ovechkin, you better have a good slap shot.
Yeah.
So again, Ovechkin, high flying eagle, and honestly, something funny on this too is that not to be forgotten here, but one of his longtime teammates up until this last season, actually, Evgeny Kuznetsov, one of his famous goal scoring dances or celebrations was the eagle. He would flap his arms like an eagle, and I think he even did it when he played for the Hurricanes this year in the playoffs.
Yes.
All right, so we've done tiger, lion, bison, eagle. We got one more left for you. Or actually, no, two more, left for you. The rhino. So another big animal. We can think of a rhino being very intimidating. Kind of like the bison, you're not going to push them over. They're going to stand up for their kind. But at the same time, another thing that the rhino is going to bring is that hard charging mentality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I said Jacob Trouba earlier for bison, but maybe Jacob Trouba is actually more of the rhino, right?
Yeah, he could fit that. Yeah, he could fit probably either one. You can make arguments both ways.
For sure. But I think the one that really encapsulates a rhino for us is Scott Stevens.
Oh yeah, it's a blast from the past right there.
Big time. Former New Jersey Devils defenseman. He was bone-crushing hits, defensive prowess. He led his team with that predator instinct by, just honestly crushing the offense on the other side. We can think of some of his most notable hits over Eric Lindros and Paul Correa.
Oh yeah, I remember those.
If you ever want chills, actually, you can watch it. The one where he hits Paul Correa in the 2003 finals. Correa is out cold. You can actually see the moment that he comes back to because his visor fogs up. He's literally out cold. Of course, we know the story. Correa goes off the ice. This is back before concussion protocol was what it is today. Comes back on the ice in that game and scores the game-winning goal to send it to Game 7, I believe. So great story there on its own. But back to Scott Stevens, 3 Stanley Cup championships, Conn Smythe trophy as the MVP that we mentioned earlier, the playoffs in 2000. He also was selected to the NHL All-Star Game 13 times. As a defenseman, I think that is incredible. And that really showed how much his rhino-like persona he carried on the ice. Mm-hmm. That hard-charging, I'm going to stand up for you, and I'm also going to lead by example. It obviously resonated with his teammates and the teams that he was on. Yeah,
I would not want to be on the ice with a Scott Stevens.
No, I think he is one of the reasons why smaller players were not in the NHL at that time, or not as prominent.
Well, that's a good transition into our last example here. Thinking of small players, I think of someone like Quinn Hughes. And the next animal sort of profile that we want to talk about is the wolf. And I know Quinn Hughes fits that perfectly.
For sure. Quinn Hughes, you can think about him as, like you said, he's a smaller player, very, very mobile. But it's also going to be, he's a defenseman still, so he's going to be kind of leading from behind, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, like a wolf, he's very much of the pack mindset, right? The wolves can hunt on their own, but also they are pack animals. And you think of some great leaders. I would imagine a wolf, you're going to picture a lot of puck-moving defensemen on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Quinn Hughes, Roman Josi, Cale Makar are 3 quick ones that come into my mind. And kind of like we said, Scott Stevens is the rhino of old, right? Now we're kind of seeing more wolves, I feel like, take on that defensive role, where maybe back in the 90s or 2000s, wolves would be prominently, wingers or centermen.
Yeah. Yeah, and one commonality too with these three that you mentioned, Hughes, Yossi, and Makar, is they're also leaders on the ice, but also off the ice. I mean, obviously Quinn is the captain, Yossi's the captain. I think Makar is an alternate captain. So yeah, they're kind of representing that stereotypical alpha, but they're doing it in a more sort of reserved, sort of quiet leadership.
For sure. So I think these are great examples. I mean, and like I said, these are just our thoughts. These are just examples that we've kind of come together with. Don't hold us to them, but if you like them, I think these are great things to relate your own game to as you go forward.
Yeah, definitely. So again, hopefully this gives you some inspiration. So as you're sitting back thinking about, okay, I'm tracking with you guys. I need to become more of a predator. I need to think like a predator when I'm out there on the ice. I don't need to fall into the trap of having sort of this prey mentality. So what animal am I going to be? I know a lot of kids, I know a lot of adults will really invest some serious time thinking about, what is that animal I want to be? I know for me personally, I've played around with a few different profiles. I think at one point in time, I wanted to be a snake where I play defense. So my sort of mindset there is I can suffocate the competition. And that was sort of my thing. I'll be like a boa constrictor and just suffocate. I've tried a few games where I try to be a shark. For those that don't know, if a shark stops moving, it dies. So it was kind of a reminder to me to always be moving my feet, never stand still. And so I tried being the shark thing. And none of them there were pros and cons to each one, but it's taken a lot of just trial and error to figure out which one fits me best. And so
you probably had ones that helped you out in certain games.
Yeah.
And then maybe in another game you weren't feeling it. Maybe a different persona helped you more.
Yeah. And kind of along that same line too, like I try to be like a Scott Stevens and I try to be like a Rhino. And it's not me. I'd say I probably would gravitate more towards the wolf thing than the Rhino or Bison thing. It's just not my style of play. But yeah, again, it just goes back to just experimenting, trying different things. But the good news here is once you can dial in that animal profile that fits you best, it's going to awaken a whole nother part of your game.
And I think another thing here, one thing that I love with any kind of personality test or I can't think of the word here, any kind of personality viewpoint is you might like a wolf as your persona. I might like a wolf as a persona, but we may look at it for two totally different reasons. Mm-hmm. Someone might like the wolf for their pack mentality, right? Someone might like it for the alpha dog mentality, right? The lone wolf. So there's different aspects, and it really just depends on what perspective you bring into it. To what you said, I think wolf is actually the one that I would more align with just because of that pack mentality. I want to make sure I am leading the pack, but also am solely part of the pack as well. And one thing I love about that is I think it carries over to the ice very, very well. And I don't play defense, but at the same time, playing center or wing, I love bringing that like kind of pack mentality to that.
Yeah, definitely. No, I've obviously played with you, and it definitely fits kind of your style of play for sure. Well, really closely related to this, a while back, we actually created a thing called the Primal Score Assessment. And so if you're a big fan of things like the Myers-Briggs, the Enneagram, the Predictive Index, if you love personality assessments, and obviously if you love the game of hockey, highly recommend carving out a few minutes and actually taking that. What it will do is it will actually you'll allocate just a few minutes to take the assessment. There's several questions, and then it'll actually tell you which animal fits you best. Like I know for you, Dale, you scored as the Bison. According to the Primal Score Assessment, that's more of a strategic type player. So these are kind of two different worlds. Obviously, Dale, you can embrace the wolf mentality as kind of your thing, but according to the assessment, you're kind of a Bison. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a Bison when you're out there, but
right.
It at least provides you some insight. It's going to give you some self-awareness. So if you want to take that assessment to figure out kind of the sort of your own spirit animal that fits you best or your style of play, you can do this at yourprimalscore.com. So again, that's yourprimalscore.com. The assessment itself takes about 10 to 15 minutes, but within that period of time, you'll again know which animal sort of fits you best as a hockey player.
And one thing I'll add on that is, as with any personality test that you would ever take, whether it be this one, the Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, like we mentioned, please answer with your first instinct, right? And I'm not saying that because we're just this is really big based on instincts with animals and that kind of mindset, but you really want to go with your gut on this. If you overthink it, you're probably creating an answer based on factors in your life at the time or what you want it to be. And then, like Scott said, I scored as a bison. It's more for me to know what type of player I am on the ice. And one thing you always want to take from any of these personality assessments is don't be caught up in just being a bison. You want to improve your game and embrace the other animals as well. But you can't do that unless you understand who you are to begin with.
Exactly. And self-awareness is key for everything in life. And so the thing that makes me most excited about this assessment is it at least will be able to provide some self-awareness for you, at least within this bucket, your hockey life, and use that information to empower and equip yourself to level up your game moving forward. All right, so we're going to take a quick break. At this point, we've addressed what is the predator mindset, what's the prey mindset. We've given you an example or several examples of, famous hockey players, and maybe what potential predator mindset they would have if they actually went through this exercise again. All of this was just our own sort of estimation on what we think they would be based on how they play, how they lead, and so forth. So we're going to take a quick break, and then on the other side, we're going to show you how to actually activate your inner predator.
Discover your hockey player type in just 3 minutes. Are you the tenacious bear or perhaps the agile cheetah? Introducing Primal Score, our free assessment to help you unleash your inner beast. It's time to take the limiter off your potential. Claim your edge by taking this fast and free assessment that's designed to help hockey players just like you achieve their full potential. Go to yourprimalscore.com to get your personalized results. Again, that's yourprimalscore.com.
All right, and welcome back, everyone. So I hope that all of us, when we go into a game, we want to make sure that we have that predator instinct in mind, right? Whether you're that wolf, bison, lion, or whatever animal that you have in your mind, you want to make sure you start the game out with that predator instinct and that you're going to go on the kill and win the game with as much intensity as you possibly can. But like we talked about earlier in the episode, there are definitely things that happen in a game that can knock you off of your game, right? They can knock you into that prey mindset where maybe you're being a lot more reactive than you are being proactive. So how do you get back into unleashing that inner predator? Well, we have some 3 easy steps here to help you get into that predator mindset and continue to hopefully win the game as best as possible.
Yeah, I know, actually, kind of speaking to this, I played a breakfast open hockey session today, and I felt like a bunny several times this morning.
Is it the 6 a.m.?
Is that what it is? The 6 a.m. And I'm playing with guys that are like straight out of college, and yeah, I mean, I felt like a bunny out there.
So I'm picturing you like getting on the ice and you're like a bunny running from one rabbit hole to the other one.
Pretty much.
Like you're just like, I'm going to go out here. I'm going to go skate a couple times up and down the ice and I'm done.
Or I'll pretend like I'm a gazelle and look like I'm busy and I'm, in the right places, but don't send me the puck because I'm not going to do anything fancy with it.
So maybe not an open hockey game where you're playing with people way above your skill level.
Yeah.
But let's say you're in a regular game that is one that counts and one that you're playing with a lot of people of your same skill, right?
Yeah.
So step 1, we want to make sure we break the pattern, right? So when we're talking about the pattern, we're talking about this negative pattern, right? This pattern of being the prey, being the bunny, as we talked about. You want to free yourself from negative emotions or that self-doubt that's been building up throughout the game, and it's really hindering your performance. There's some great simple game-friendly physical actions that you may do this already. I know I do a couple of these things already. Probably didn't know I was doing it to break a pattern mentally in my mind, but that it just kind of happened. One is squirt water in the air, right? It may sound simple. You see goalies do it a lot. I watch a lot of NHL goalies where that goal is scored on them. I think of Braden Holtby was one that does it a lot, right? He always hits that water ball on top of the net, squirts it straight up in the air. It's just kind of like hey, release, right? He's releasing that tension. He's releasing that stress that just came from maybe the goal going in. It doesn't have to be in the air either, right? Some players squirt it on their face. Hopefully you're not squirting on your teammates unless you have their permission, or else they might get annoyed with you.
Yeah.
But it's something that is definitely utilized a lot by a lot of players. One that I do a lot is hit your stick on the boards. And I'm not talking about slamming your stick on the boards on the ice. Don't be dangerous to the those that are around you. But you get back to the bench. It's just a quick little stick tap on the butt end of your stick to the boards on the inside the bench. It's an auditory cue. It's a reconnection with the physicality of the game, right? So you are just getting off of maybe being chased around the ice or feeling like you're being chased around, and you are ready to get back into doing the chasing. So it's just that little hit the stick, that auditory cue that kind of kickstarts you back into that predator mindset.
Yeah, I think, whether it's squirting water or hitting your stick, really at the end of the day, it's simply taking action, like doing something physical to be intentional about, like, okay, I'm going to break the pattern. That shift did not, it didn't go the way I wanted it to. I'm back on the bench. What can I physically do right now? What's an action I can take? And you can choose what that action is, but take an action which basically kickstarts and ignites this process of you're breaking the pattern, you're being intentional about it, so you can start this reset routine, which we're unpacking for you.
I think another thing too, to kind of keep with the auditory cue of reset, right, is, sometimes it can even be just, motivational talk to your teammates, right? It kickstarts the talk. It kickstarts the, hey, we got this. We're going to get this. Like, let's get out there, attack them. It's even just like we said in one of the previous episodes, say it out loud. We are going to attack them. And that kind of plants that not only in your head, but in your teammates' heads as well.
Yeah, definitely. So, whether it's taking a physical action or igniting that new sense of enthusiasm through, your positive self-talk to yourself or to your teammates, whatever is going to allow you to break the pattern, to put the past behind you, that's the main objective.
Perfect. So step one, break the pattern. You want to make sure you get yourself away from, like we said, that self-doubt, get yourself back into that predator mindset. Scott, what about step two?
Yeah, so step two is all about breathing. So I know in a few episodes ago, we talked about 4x4 breathing or box breathing. This is, again, something that the Navy SEALs practice. Again, I will suggest that here. You want to really just focus on your breathing as you're, so now that you've taken this action, you're recentering yourself, you're refocusing your thoughts and your body. What you need to do here next is actually then focus in on your breathing. I'll go through 4x4 breathing or box breathing really, really quick for those that may have not heard that episode. But basically, as you are at the bottom of your breath, you wait for 4 seconds. And then as you inhale, you take 4 seconds to inhale. At the top of your breath, you wait 4 seconds. And then you exhale and take 4 seconds to do that. So it's kind of like this. It's like a 1, 2, 3, 4. Take 4 seconds to do that, and then wait for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then exhale for 4 seconds. Do this for 2-3 minutes, a minute and a half, however much time you have on the bench. But by doing this, it's going to reduce your heart rate. And when your heart rate is reduced, you're going to be in a calmer state of mind. Your mind's going to be better. Your body's going to be better. And again, it's going to allow you to sort of recenter and refocus your energy where it needs to go, and that is embracing this predator mindset that we're talking about. I know I've mentioned a few times in this podcast, my mentor friend, Dr. Saul Miller, he always talks about the best way to love yourself is to practice your breathing. And there's something obviously very therapeutic about it. So by breathing correctly and focusing on your breath, it's a good way to give yourself some self-love, self-care before you jump back out there on the ice.
So step one was break the pattern. Step two was breathing. You've done all that, right? Step three is pretty simple. You have to begin, right? So you've reset, auditory cue, something to reset it. You've now taken the time to, as we talked about, love yourself. You've breathed. You've gotten your heart rate down. You've gotten back into a rhythm. Now it's time to actually begin and complete the mental reset, right? You want to kickstart this inner beast, this predator that's inside of you, by affirming your hockey identity. So, and this is really simple. It's just repeat a personal mantra that kind of reflects those qualities of that animal, whether it be resilience, aggression, pure domination, whatever it may be, that you want to carry onto the ice and into the game. Some examples of this: if you're a rhino, you could say, I am unyielding like a rhino. Or I am swift, bold, and unstoppable like a cheetah. Or we mentioned the snake earlier. I'm a snake and I will suffocate my opponent, right? Whatever that may be, it's got to be something that you don't just say, but you need to believe it. And one way to help you believe it is by repeating it. But you need to have it be something that you're going to really put faith in and have that drive. Because honestly, what we've really gotten into on this is that predator is inside of you, right? It's living inside of you. You just got to make sure you're unleashing it with this mental reset.
Yeah, one of the things I really love about this predator mindset is I've tried other things, and other sports psychologists will talk about how you need to have, develop an alter ego, or maybe you're like a superhero, or I've even tried experimenting with, again, sort of that warrior mentality where I'm like a Spartan out there and I'm, at war, I'm in a battle. And there was always sort of been a disconnect for me when I typically go that alter ego direction. But if you think about us as, you think about animals, you think about us being humans, there's something very primal about it, hence the primal score assessment. But as humans, we can always sort of connect to that animal spirit because, again, there's this sort of primitive primal thing within us that makes that connection so easy to make as compared to something that is like an alter ego. So you have to give yourself permission in this process when you begin. And Dale, you mentioned this about repetition. And I think that's a very key word is you can't just say I'm unyielding like a rhino and expect to go out there on that shift and be a rhino, right? You've got to be saying it to yourself. You've got to believe it. And not only say it on the bench, but say it while you're driving to the rink. Say it when you're driving home from the rink. Be thinking about it. Really own this animal persona and let it become who you are as a hockey player.
I had to laugh at that because I just pictured someone sitting on the bench and saying once to themselves, I'm unyielding like a rhino, and then be like, Scott, I don't understand. I went out, I didn't play anything like a rhino. I don't know why. But that is why we say repeat it, believe it, make sure that you're not just saying it, right? And it just, I don't know, it'll carry over more than you think it will, but you have to put the belief behind it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's, again, I tend to be more of an offensive defenseman, and one of the things lacking in my play recently is I just don't play with enough fierceness sometimes. And so when I've been thinking about my own animal sort of personas that I can embrace, and I know I've mentioned a lot about trial and error, but I mean, I've thought about the bison or a gorilla or any of those things. And yeah, I think probably the last 2-3 games I've played the fiercest I've ever played. And it's because, again, I'm thinking about these personalities that I want as a hockey player, or these qualities or traits.
That's awesome that you can see that kind of carry over in your own game too. We're not just talking about this stuff. We're practicing it as well. And this is stuff that is, you can really see the outcome and the results from it.
Yeah. And that's the most beautiful part about it. And it's why we've dedicated an entire episode to it, because it works. It really does. And even though we're not elite players, even as, recreational or just sort of serious hockey players, I mean, even at our level, there's immense return in making this investment in yourself and doing this exercise. So how do you bring this all together? Obviously we've talked about 3 steps here, break, breathe, begin. What does this actually look like in a formal sort of process or setup? Basically, this is sort of the cornerstone or the foundation of what we would call a reset routine. So what is a reset routine? It's basically comprised of 5 parts, which really include the 3 things that we've just talked about. But thinking about your own reset routine, what it needs to look like is, number 1, allocate some time to reflect on your game. Think about those moments where you're probably most vulnerable, where there could be opportunities to reset. Choose your break action. Think about it now. Don't just be reactive in the moment, but think about, you're going to have a shift that goes bad. It's inevitable. So what is that physical action that you're going to take? Again, we talked about squirting water in the air. We talked about hitting your sticks on the board. Think now, plan ahead. What is the action that you want to take to reset yourself?
And I believe it's something you might do already, but you want to make it your break action.
Yes.
You want to put more meaning behind it.
Exactly. So choose what that is now, plan ahead, and then be intentional about your breathing. So again, we're talking about braking and then breathing. You could do the 4x4 technique that we talked about. If that seems like overkill to you, at the most basic level, be aware of your breathing. Don't just get back on the bench and you're just huffing and puffing. Like, stop, pause, take a couple deep breaths, calm down, settle your heart rate. But you need to be aware. And I think that's the biggest thing there.
If you're aware of your breathing, just from my own personal experience, even if you're not like counting out the seconds, if you're just aware of your breathing, you will naturally slow your breathing down, because no one is actually actively aware of their breathing, and it's increasing unless you're having a panic attack. And I mean, those happen, but at the same time, just by, like you said, Scott, of being aware of your breathing and getting back to that bench and thinking about it, you will notice that your heart rate will go down, you will start to calm down, and when you do that, your mind gets back into that reset in that space that it can be at to be the most creative.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I've actually been taking a lot of private lessons to work on just my own defense technique. And so as I'm doing drills and I go back to the bench to take a break, my coach will always come up to me and is like, Scott, you're breathing. And because normally I'll just be huffing and puffing and not even paying attention. And as soon as he says, Scott, you're breathing, all of a sudden I'm like hyper aware of like, oh yeah, I'm breathing really, really heavy. And I'll give myself permission for 5-10 seconds to breathe heavy, but then I need to like calm down and sort of take control of myself. So awareness is such a critical component of breathing, and just having that, that extra dose of awareness there. All right, so we've talked about 5 steps here. 1, reflect on your game. Think about potential moments where you can do the reset. Choose that break action. Think now. Practice your breathing. And then we get into the begin process, which is just another way of saying craft your mantra. Again, if you're that rhino, that cheetah, you're that snake, we gave you some examples there. And then put it all together. By doing that, that essentially is your reset routine. It's really just doing the 3 things that we talked about. It's breaking, breathing, and giving yourself permission to actually begin, which is that 3rd step.
Awesome. So this is great. I hope that you guys put this into action with your own reset routine. If you, I've said it in one of our episodes before, if you have a hard time remembering the steps, a great thing about this podcast format is just pause it, rewind, listen to it again. But you will see, like we talked about before, you will see the results come from this. You will see the outcome come from it. And we would love to hear from you too. If you do hear or see those results, we would love to know what the outcome was, maybe what your mantra was. We would love to, I personally would love to hear what the different predatory animals are out there. If someone did relate to a hummingbird, great. I want to hear the reasons behind it.
I want to hear those stories. Yeah.
Exactly. I want to hear it, right? And we've been doing a lot of bashing on bunnies on this thing too, but if you have that as your animal, there's no, we're not. I don't know. We're not going to judge you on that, but we want to hear the reasons behind it. So we would love to hear from you guys. But the main thing in all this is that we want to make sure that you discover and unleash your inner predator. It's a journey, right, Scott? It's not something that someone's going to just be like, you said it before yourself. You've gone through how many animals?
I don't know. I feel like I'm on my 6th or 7th animal at the moment. And I would tell you if I had mine figured out, because some of you are probably wondering, well, what is your animal, Scott? I don't know yet. I am continuing to sort of sharpen that, but I know each time I'm getting better and better, and I think I'm pretty close, but I'm still figuring it out.
So what you're telling me is that you're not one animal, but you're your own pack of animals.
Yeah, I'm like a Voltron out there.
Yeah, exactly. You just come together to be this all-powerful hockey player. It works. It's great. Then that's awesome. So, but the main thing here is we want you to recognize that your identity and really help yourself define what kind of hockey player you want to be on the ice. It's not who you are right now. Again, this is a journey. We want to be what we want, we're wanting to shoot for what we want to be in the future. That is.
Yeah. And the main thing here is if you do want to literally play with killer instincts, this is the route you need to go. Invest the time, the energy, be proactive, invest in yourself, and think seriously about, again, what predator do you want to be the next time you're out there on the ice?
Awesome. Well, that's a wrap on episode number 4. We want to sign off here, but before we do so, we want to make sure that you download our mental toughness awareness guide so that you can also learn how to become a more confident and fearless hockey player. To do this, all you have to do is simply go to gritbase.com/mental toughness to download your free copy. It's very easy to do. It takes no time at all. And we hope that you do it. You take the time out of your day to really start the process in becoming a more confident and fearless hockey player. It's super easy, and we would love for you to really just, launch yourself into that growth mindset.
Yeah, and also don't forget to take the Primal Score assessment. Again, you can do that at yourprimalscore.com. So if you want a little bit more extra insight about yourself, if you want that self-awareness moment, highly encourage you take it.
We're also extremely active on all the social media platforms, and we would love to stay connected with you. We post daily about mental performance strategies for hockey players. All you have to do is just search for GritBase. That's at GritBase Hockey on Instagram or GritBase Hockey on Facebook or any of those social media sites, really.
Threads, LinkedIn,
all of
YouTube, etc.
But we make sure you follow us on that platform and give us some reviews if you have them. We would love to hear from you. But with that, we hope you all have a great week, and we will see you all next Tuesday.
You have been listening to the Hockey Combat Mindset Podcast with Scott Schwertly and Dale Dameron. New episodes release every Tuesday, so be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a rating, provide a review, or make a topic recommendation for a future episode. Thanks again for tuning in, and join us next week for another episode.